Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. You will be aware now of the weights for the Conor Benn CHRIS EUBANK Jr. rematch, and to the surprise of some, Ben has weighed in heavier than Eubank. So I mean, it's 159.3 for Ben, and then 159.1 for Eubank. Mildly surprising to some. There's really, look, let's be honest here. CHRIS EUBANK Jr. is the naturally bigger man. He's got a bigger frame, but you can boil yourself down to a certain weight if you need to. Whether you can retain your energy, your engine, your punch resistance, and so on and so forth is another matter. I think with Bomac running this camp, probably things were done a little bit less autonomously, because Eubank likes to be his own man. He likes to sort of call the shots. I don't see him hiring Bomac and Bomac putting up with that sort of stuff. But a lot of people have said, well, what can Bomac teach Eubank in just one camp? They have worked together. They worked together for the Liam Smith rematch. Well, sometimes it's not necessarily about teaching you new stuff. It's about reminding you of what tools you do have in your box, and how you're going to, and when to use them, when to bring out the right tools for the right moments, if you like. And also running an efficient, disciplined camp means that you will make the optimum weight sensibly and safely. That's got to be done. That's got to be done. And I'm not convinced that was done for the first Ben fight at all. This time round, 159.1 is probably light for Eubank. Now for Ben, of course, he was until a few years ago a welterweight. I think he's probably closer now in terms of real weight to 154, to a super welterweight. He talks about going back down to welterweight to beat up Barrios and Rolly Romero and all the others. I don't know. I think he might be in for a shock if he thinks he's going to waltz back down to 147. I think we'll probably see him after this fight going back down to 154 and boxing there. And let's not forget that 154 is a very, very serious weight division at the moment. It's got a lot of talent. The champions alone, never mind the contenders, are, impressive. They're all impressive in their own way. And then when you consider the guys that don't hold the full fat belts, Boots Ennis being probably the most obvious example. Yeah, Conor Benn's going to have his work cut out at 154. So anyway, that's for the future, of course. I don't think the weights really matter that much in terms of size, power, and so on. Eubank is naturally the bigger man. There is a rehydration clause in place. Eubank has complained about it. He was the one that negotiated the contracts. He was the one that signed the contracts. If you do that, I don't really understand why you would complain about it, because nobody has forced you to do X, Y, Z when really you wanted to do A, B, C. It just doesn't seem to me to be a legitimate argument. Why are you complaining, Chris? The time to complain was before you put pen to paper. So, I mean, seeing them side by side again, they both look really cut. I mean, Ben didn't look like he had an ounce of fat on him, and as a middleweight, I mean, I don't know. Could he carry on at 160 after this fight? He says he's not going to. He said he wants to go down to 147. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's too small for 160, but the doubts I had for the first fight were that Eubank had not made the weight correctly, and that might come back to haunt him. I did pick him to win the first fight. I'm picking him to win this fight as well, if you watch my preview video. But I do find the whole thing this time round to be probably a little bit more settled in terms of the weight for Eubank. I don't think that I don't think it will be an issue. And also, let's not forget, in the first fight, Eubank did. He showed a brilliant engine. He actually finished very, very strongly. So I don't know. I mean, I think that these weights, it kind of reinforces my belief that Eubank will again win on points. I think we'll probably see maybe he was robust in the first fight, but I think Conor, in the look of his body as they were standing next to each other, I got the impression he's understandably settled into the weight more. He looked a bit more like a naturally bigger man. The weight seemed to be distributed a bit better from what I could do. This is only the eye test, and I'm certainly no nutritionist. So they're all good to go. And to be honest with you, I see nothing to change my mind. I think Eubank will still win on points. I think Benn will give him, again, a hell of a fight. He will emerge with a lot of credit. I think probably we'll see like a 116, 112 for Eubank, that type of scorecard. But you never know. You never know, do you? And let's not forget, just if you're of a certain age like I am, it's very rarely mentioned that Nigel Benn was an awful lot smaller than CHRIS EUBANK Sr. It's very rarely mentioned. I actually went to the press conference for their rematch in 1993. And beforehand, I've said this before in videos, but they stood back to back. Eubank had, his waistcoat on, brown striped waistcoat, I seem to remember, with no shirt, and jodhpurs, and Benn just wore whatever, some sort of fashionable, overpriced sports gear. But they stood back to back. And the size difference was really striking, to the point where, as all the paparazzi were snapping them, Benn actually sort of stood on tiptoes and looked over his shoulder as a sort of joke, whereas Eubank was very sort of, his usual self. So, like father, like son. I mean, Nigel Benn and CHRIS EUBANK Sr. fought each other twice, first at middleweight, then at super middleweight. Eubank Sr. being, I think, much the bigger man, certainly the bigger frame anyway. And now we have CHRIS EUBANK Jr. fighting the smaller Conor Benn. So history repeating itself in that sense as well. Anyway, just a few thoughts. I'm rambling a little bit here, but just a few thoughts. Let me know if you've got any comments about the weights, the weigh-in. Not long now, is it? Not long now till the fight itself, less than 24 hours. So if you've got any predictions or whatever you want to talk about, just slap it down below in the comments and I'll have a read. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button if you like the video. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. You know it makes sense. Thank you very much. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.